We have some breaking news here on Chicago Bears Now. Tashaun Gipson has re-signed on a one-year contract. I'm your host, Harrison Graham. We'll break this down over the next several minutes here on the show. Gipson returns to Chicago for 2021 on a one-year deal after playing last season in Chicago. I thought he played pretty well last season next to Eddie Jackson. Now, certainly Jackson didn't play that well last year. We'll kind of tie him into the conversation as we go along here. But the good news is I believe Chicago enters the draft not really needing anything at safety. You have Tashaun Gipson back. You have Eddie Jackson. You re-signed Deon Bush, who is kind of the ideal number 3 safety in today's NFL. I think the Bears are set at safety, and I love this move by Chicago. Look, Tashaun Gipson played pretty darn well last year by pretty much every metric. He outplayed Eddie Jackson, was better in coverage. Now, there's been some question marks about how they fit together as they're both, historically free safeties, but I think in terms of who was left on the market, this is about as good as you were going to do. Bring back a guy who knows the system well in Tashaun Gipson, and that is what the Bears did, bringing him back on a one-year contract. Now, we don't know the specifics on the one-year contract. I would guess it's pretty cheap. What is your one-word reaction to him re-signing with the Chicago Bears? Go ahead and let me know in the comments. One-word reaction to Tashaun Gipson re-signing in Chicago. Make sure you get subscribed to Chicago Bears Now. I got to get to 25,000 subs on this channel by the start of the NFL Draft. We got 10 days, just over 300 away. I think we can get there. Heck, we might get there in the next couple of days. Hit that big red button and subscribe. It's youtube.com/Bears Now. We're at 24,661 subs. Let's get to 25K well before next Thursday because, hey, the draft, it's 10 days away. And that's another reason to subscribe. Lots of draft coverage here on the channel, here on Bears Now. So go ahead and subscribe. My one-word reaction to Gipson re-signing, solid. Like, Tashaun Gipson's not a top 5, not a top 10 safety. He's not an all-pro by any means. He's not what he once was with Jacksonville a few years back, but this is still a good player in the National Football League. Had 66 tackles last year, had a couple of interceptions, 7 pass breakups. You can kind of run flexible looks in this secondary since you've got 2 center fielder types back there. Now, again, the safety group's not going to be as good against the run, because Jackson and Gipson are better as coverage guys. But we have to acknowledge that Gipson outplayed Eddie Jackson this past year. That's just a fact of the matter. And I'm seeing a lot of people on Bears Twitter saying, bringing back Gipson's a bad move because Eddie Jackson played bad last year. That's not Gipson's problem. That's Eddie Jackson's problem. The last couple of years, Jackson slowly slipped, and this past year was his worst year yet in Chicago. I think he'll play better next year, but this is on Eddie Jackson to figure out. That's not a Tashaun Gipson issue. I think you bring these guys back together in this scheme under Sean Desai, who I think will mix things up a little bit in the 2021 NFL season. You bring Gipson back. You got Jackson, who's been in this scheme for a few years now. I think he'll bounce back this upcoming season. The question is, who will be the better safety between these two for Chicago in 2021? Type J if you think it'll be Eddie Jackson. Type G if it'll be Tashaun Gipson. Get your votes in. Better player in 2021. Now, you're hoping Eddie Jackson's the better player because that's who you've invested in, and I think he's going to bounce back. I think Eddie Jackson will bounce back this upcoming season. I think this safety tandem will play well together. You got a full offseason to work together after not really having that this past year. And now Gipson's back. He knows the scheme. Jackson's been in this thing for a while. Sean Desai has coached him as the safeties coach for a few years, and I trust him to get Jackson back on track. He just wasn't great last year. He had 0 interceptions in 2020, only 5 pass breakups as a top 3 or 4 highest paid safety in the NFL. You're expecting more out of Eddie Jackson. Tashaun Gipson should not be outplaying him at this point in his career. I think that changes next year. I think Eddie Jackson will bounce back. Now, you look at the secondary There's still question marks. A, do you get good safety play between those two guys playing next to each other? I think you will, but we'll see. CB2 is still very questionable with Desmond Trufant. Is Jalen Johnson ready to be that number one corner? We'll see. I think if he stays healthy, he has the ability to be that. Duke Shelley at nickel, do you trust that? Do you add someone in the draft still at the cornerback position? I definitely think that adding a corner in the draft is very much a possibility, which is why re-signing Tashaun Gipson or any other safety next to Eddie Jackson really was important, because you didn't want to enter this draft feeling like you had to take a safety early, in my opinion. You just have too many needs if you are Chicago. Quarterback, offensive tackle, corner, wide receiver. Those are all bigger needs than safety, and now that Gipson is back on board, you don't have to worry about that as much. Could you take a safety on day 3, take a flyer on someone? Absolutely, but I think you're set for 2021 with Tashaun Gipson and Eddie Jackson. Are you happy that Gipson is back? I'm already seeing conflicting stuff on my Twitter feed here from Bears fans, Bears media members. Type Y for yes, type N for no. I'm pleased with the moves. It's unfortunate this team can't figure out quarterback, because I like a lot of the minor moves they've done. It just can't get a quarterback, so hopefully that changes in the draft. But Y for yes, N for no. Let us know if you are happy that Tashaun Gipson is back with the Chicago Bears. Now, give me a follow on Twitter at HGramNFL. You would have known this news right away, because I acknowledged it on my Twitter page and got some retweets from you guys, so appreciate it. At HGramNFL, we get news and rumors out to you guys on the channel, but I'm also giving more tidbits on my Twitter page also. So give me a follow at HGramNFL. I'll keep you guys up to date on the Chicago Bears and more NFL stuff as well. So just to circle back, Tashaun Gipson back on a one-year deal for his second straight season with Chicago. I thought he bounced back nicely last year. Didn't play that well in 2019 with the Houston Texans. Hopefully he plays just as well, if not better, in 2021, and you get good play out of Eddie Jackson as well. We don't know the contract details yet. We will see. I would guess it's no more than $3 million or so. The safety market just hasn't really developed, especially for these non-top tier guys, which Gibson's not a top tier guy. He's like a tier 2 type of safety. Good player, but certainly not an all-pro by any means, but only 30 years old, good in coverage. I thought he improved a little bit in the run this past season. I disagree with the notion that this secondary is just, grasping at straws this year. I think you need another corner, but I think your secondary tandem of Jackson and Gipson can work, and I think an extra off-season and OTAs, if we have those, and obviously training camp as well, will really help groom Gipson into the scheme in another year. And I think, again, I want to re-hit on this. Eddie Jackson bounces back. That's one of my big takes heading into next season. I think he will bounce back and have a really good season in 2021, next to Tashaun Gipson in year number 2 in this system. So Gipson back on a one-year deal. If we get some contract details, we will inform you on those as well. So keep it here on Chicago Bears Now.